Take a look here at Collin Burns, Collin Adrian Gonzalez here. This is Ryan Adams with Baltimore Orioles working in the facility down here. Taking a look at the overall pattern here. Again, Collin is a right-handed thrower, left-handed batter. Again, batting left-handed has, most of the advantages, so it's always a smart thing to do. But sometimes we do see, with that left arm not used to throwing, sometimes developing that throwing pattern, we have to focus a little bit more on that offhand, on developing a good throwing pattern with that top arm when we're hitting. And taking a look here at Collin's overall pattern, I like it in that it's one fluid movement. On this particular day, he was no striding most of the time, meaning he was loading and unloading his back leg without that front foot ever really leaving the ground. The heel would come up and then it would come down, which can certainly work as long as there's a effective load and lateral unload of that back leg. So he's got good rhythm in his swing. He's made some adjustments since this point in time, but we'll go ahead and analyze this swing first, and then we'll take a look at the new swing when we get it. Collin, make sure you look at the student DVD video on my YouTube channel to see more examples of what of some of the things I'm talking about here. When I analyze the swing, I look primarily at three areas: the back leg, the back arm, and the front side. And again, with that front side, we're looking for a strong base or wall to hit behind. Okay, let's go ahead and start with the back leg. Again, Collin, some of these things we've talked about, and I think you've already made some adjustments. The back leg has a very simple goal: is to get loaded before the release of the pitch and laterally unload into that front side before the heel drops. Begin to load, and that unloading is going to happen as the heel drops when that ball is about halfway home, and by that I mean that back leg is going to basically complete its task. It's going to finish unloading as that heel drops. Again, after that, the back foot, if we look at our professionals, the back foot will come around, but that is more of a passive action. Okay, we don't want to force that. Okay, so again, the back leg very simply has to load and then laterally or sideways unload into the front side. So as we look at Collin, and this is something we've looked at, he starts with his his knees very bent. I'd like to see him straighten up a little bit with his back leg and get rid of all this or at least 90% of this activity that we have with the back leg, the back knee itself. You can see the knee starts there, it really goes into deep flexion, and then he straightens it or extends it here, and that's going to create a lot of head movement there as we go into the ball. Okay, so we got to quiet that back knee. If you look here at Adrian, or you look at Adams' footwork, you can see that back knee is very quiet. It stays in front of the foot and doesn't really undergo a whole lot of flexion extension. Okay, this action to the front side is mainly happening here at the hip joint. Okay, as that bone begins to press sideways. So that's really where the activity should be in the back leg, is at that hip joint pressing sideways. As we continue to look at Collin, you can see how much the back foot is already turned over. Again, all these are synced to contact, and Collin is really forcing that back leg over. I do think Collin in this particular swing and on this particular day was getting some press out of that back leg. There's definitely some shift or some press, but then it's compromised. It's not what it needs to be. He's more concerned with, even though there is some press going on, some shift going on, he's more concerned with spinning the foot. And in this particular swing, and we don't really see that foot gain any ground. That's not always an indicator. A lot of times it is. The important thing is that the back leg drives, but oftentimes evidence will have that foot sliding forward a little bit, usually gaining ground a couple, 2 or 3 inches. Okay, doesn't necessarily always have to, but usually that's some evidence. And here, looking at that, you can definitely see that Collin's foot stays in the same place, more spinning there, not really completing a driving action. Okay, so Collin, again, this is stuff we've talked about. We're going to quiet that knee action very simply. Just get that back leg ready before release, and then it's your first move. It's your first attacking thing at the ball. It's just to press sideways. Don't worry about spinning it. It'll turn over plenty on its own. Again, as you watch Adrian's foot, it does. Shoelaces do kind of get out towards where the flight of the ball, but then as he's coming through, that foot's back to sideways. Okay, so that spinning foot isn't a source of power. Just work sideways to the ball. Let it do what it's going to do. Okay, moving on to the front side here, and again, we really want to feel like we're hitting leverage behind this front side. And your best hitters, you see this nice clean diagonal line here, where knee is behind foot, hip behind knee, shoulder behind hip, and head behind everything. And the classic characteristic again is this tilted torso. Anytime we don't get enough out of the back side and the upper half starts to get involved too soon, we see a more what I like to call as a jackknife position, to where the torso is always vertical, and it creates this type of look when we map it out. So we want to feel more tilt and less turn out of the torso. Again, we're seeing this, you see this a lot in youth hitters. They tend to involve the upper half too much and too soon, and it causes us to kind of fly open. Some of this, really a lot of it's related to the idea that he thinks he's got in this particular day, or this particular swing at least, the thought that he's powering things by spinning this back foot kind of works its way up the chain. So again, I think he's flying open. I think he could establish a much better wall on that front side to hit behind. Kind of looking down at the front foot. Again, we really want that front foot to land square with the knee bent there. He does land square again on this day. He really wasn't striding. I do think he lets the knee kind of creep on top of the foot a bit. The foot does, I don't like that much knee activity going into foot plant, really. So you can see how much is turning there. That's a lot of flying open and knee activity. So I think both knees really kind of need to calm down a bit. Now the position winds up pretty good. I'm not super crazy about turning it that far in and then winding right back up there. So I would tend to want to calm that down. It does land square though, and the knee is in a pretty good position there, and it is behind the foot. Could maybe be a little bit more back of the foot there. And again, with the upper, we really like to see more tilt and less turn there in the upper body. Okay, lastly, we're taking a look at the back arm, Collin's left arm. As he slots to the ball, he's in a real good position. In other words, Collin is able to slot his elbow without the palm going skyward, and we keep a very much of a palm, on the pitch position, with a very nice stacked barrel. Okay, so and the elbow is very bent and flexed. Okay, so this is an outstanding position from which to launch the barrel from. Okay, so you're gonna get to this position on every pitch. In other words, every pitch that elbow is going to work to the ball, and then immediately after that elbow slots, we really want to be in a very good position to launch from. You can see he lines up very nicely there. Now, I will say there's a little bit of form here without all the function. I'd like to see a little bit more of a loading pattern with the elbow to kind of start things, and a little bit more of a throwing action to kind of load. But the position of the hands is outstanding. So I think just adding a little bit better load, lifting of the elbow to kind of get things started, to start the throw, would give us more bat speed, more quickness, more power behind the move. And as he goes out to finish, okay, pretty good contact position. Again, all the turning here, he's got his hands out a little bit far out in front. You can see how his hands are in front of his front foot, where we really want to be making contact with those hands behind the front foot, a little deeper in the zone, if you will. And then again, our professionals, those hands turn over within 3 frames after contact. And again, very common with amateurs. Collin is kind of pulling the ball around in the corner, and then this the top hand kind of comes off before it really finishes there. Okay, and you can also see his lead wrist kind of cups there instead of kind of staying extended and kind of getting under the top hand. It kind of cups and pulls over. Okay, so we do need to work on a little bit better hand action through the ball. Okay, and you can see that there's another cupping position there. Okay, a little bit more than we want to see. We don't want to see that hand that far over. Some is acceptable, but that's a little too much cupping that we're seeing right here. Okay. One other thing that I always kind of relate really to the front side, the head, the eyes are really on kind of that front half there. We look at Collin's head, and I see this a lot sometimes in people that are force and turn, is that the eyes begin to get perpendicular to the ground. We really want, there is a little bit of pinching of the head that'll come, but we really want a pretty quiet neck in terms of we don't want the neck to start tilting the head too much or trying to follow the ball with the head. We really want to see that ball out front, and our neck is really pretty quiet for the most part. Okay, we don't want to let the head get too far sideways. There are going to be some adjustments made there, but we want to feel like we see the ball, out front, out here. See the ball out here, and try to keep our eyes fairly parallel to the ground.